Grammar lesson, interrogative and assertive sentences. Let's understand what are interrogative and assertive sentences. An assertive sentence gives information. The information could be positive or negative. Example, you should not have done this. The word not is there in this sentence, so it is a negative information. You should have done so. There are no negative words like no or not. So therefore, this is a positive information. Both these are examples of assertive sentences. An interrogative sentence may be a WH question or it may be a yes/no question. A WH question seeks information, whereas the answer to a yes/no question may be a simple yes or no. For example, where is she waiting for you? This is a WH question. It seeks information. You will say she's waiting near the park or she's waiting near the railway station. The next example, is she waiting for you? This is a yes/no type of a question with a simple yes or a no. You will answer it just by saying yes or no. Is she waiting for you? Yes or no. WH questions begin with WH words. What are the WH words? What, who, whom, whose, which, where, when, why, and even how. How is also a WH word. Yes, no questions begin with auxiliaries. What are auxiliaries? They are also called as helping verbs. As, is, am, are, was, were, have, had, will, shall, should, may, might, must, and would. These are all auxiliaries or helping verbs. Let us understand how to interchange assertive sentences to interrogative and vice versa. You can form a yes/no interrogative sentence by placing the auxiliary verb in the beginning of the sentence before the subject. The auxiliary verb is in the assertive sentence itself. If the auxiliary verb is not in the sentence, you will have to use do, does, or did, depending on the tense or the number of the sentence. Note, if the assertive sentence is positive, the interrogative sentence will be negative and vice versa. That is, if the assertive sentence is negative, then the interrogative will be positive. We will understand this concept with the help of the following examples. Let's take the following examples to understand how to interchange assertive sentences into a yes/no interrogative sentence. The first example, she was good at baking cakes. This is an assertive sentence. We have to change it into the yes/no interrogative sentence. So how do we change it into the interrogative sentence? Here in this example, was is underlined. Now, was is the auxiliary verb. The previous slide will tell you that to change an assertive sentence into a yes/no interrogative sentence, use the auxiliary that is there in the assertive sentence itself. So use the auxiliary before the subject. So she is the subject. So you use the auxiliary before the subject. Now, why have we started with wasn't? Because the assertive sentence is positive. The previous slide, the note tells you that if the assertive sentence is positive, then your interrogative sentence goes as negative. Therefore, we begin by writing, wasn't she good at baking cake? So the was will become wasn't. Let's take the second example. Everyone must get equal opportunity. This is also an assertive sentence and it is in a positive. The auxiliary must is underlined. The rule says that if there is the auxiliary in the assertive itself, use that auxiliary itself before the subject. What is the subject? Everyone. So you use must. But why have you started with mustn't? Because the assertive is positive. So therefore you will use mustn't everyone get equal opportunity question mark. So this sentence is an interrogative sentence, a yes/no interrogative sentence. The third example, politics makes people corrupt. This is also an assertive sentence and it is positive because there is no negative word. Now, makes is underlined, but makes is not the auxiliary. So, if you refer to the previous slide, it tells us that if there is no auxiliary, then we have to use do, does, or did, depending on the tense and the number of the sentence. So first we have to look at the sentence. Politics makes people corrupt. What is the tense of the sentence? It is in the present tense. Therefore, you will use do or does. Now, this word, this is the subject, politics. Do we say do politics? It doesn't sound grammatically correct. We say does politics. So, we cannot use does because here the assertive is a positive sentence. So therefore you will begin by writing, doesn't politics make people corrupt? That's an interrogative sentence. Doesn't politics make people corrupt? Question mark. It's an interrogative sentence. The next example, people like good service. This is an assertive sentence. What is underlined? Like. But like is not the auxiliary. If there is no auxiliary, we use do, does, or didn't. Over here, what is the tense? It is the present. So do or does in the present. Now here, do we say does people? No, we say do people. Now we start with don't. Why don't? Because the assertive is positive. So therefore, instead of writing do people, you'll say don't people like good service question mark. This is an interrogative sentence. The last example, everyone heard the instructions. This is also an assertive sentence. Heard is underlined. There is no auxiliary. So therefore you will use do, does, or did. Now why did here? Because this sentence is, the tense is past. So the rule says that if this tense is past, then you're going to use did. But you'll start with didn't. Why didn't? Because this assertive sentence is positive. So therefore your interrogative will go as didn't, the negative. Didn't everyone hear the instructions? Question mark. So this is an interrogative sentence. A few more examples to understand how to rewrite assertive as interrogative. The first example, I would never play like this again. It's an assertive sentence. Now, over here, would is the auxiliary. The rule says that you use the auxiliary itself. Now, since this assertive is negative, never, the word never is used. So, therefore, you will write the interrogative as, would I ever play like this again? So, never will become ever. Would I ever play like this? So, the interrogative is positive now because here the assertive was negative. Would is the auxiliary. So you use the auxiliary before the subject I. The second example, we should not ignore his message. This is an assertive sentence. Should is the auxiliary, but here this assertive is negative. So again, use the auxiliary. The rule says use the auxiliary which is there in the assertive itself before the subject we. So you will write, should we ever ignore his message? So that not will become ever. Should we ever ignore his message? Question mark. This is an interrogative sentence. The next example, everyone enjoys watching birds. It's an assertive sentence. Over here, there is no auxiliary. So we have to use do, does, or did. Everyone enjoys watching birds. Now, what is the tense? It's the present tense. So therefore, you're going to use does or do. Now, everyone. Do we say do everyone? It is does everyone. So therefore, you will write doesn't everyone enjoy watching birds? Why you took doesn't? Because this assertive is positive. You heard what he said. It's an assertive sentence. The tense is past tense. So the rule says there is no auxiliary. So you're going to use do, does, or did. Do and does in the present and did will be in the past. So therefore you're going to use did. But why have we to take didn't? Because the assertive is positive. So you will write, didn't you hear what he said. It will not go didn't you heard. It is didn't you hear what he said, question mark. It's an interrogative sentence. Snakes belong in jars in a museum, assertive sentence. So there is no auxiliary, you have to use do, does if the tense is present. This tense is present. The tense of this sentence is present tense. So therefore you're going to use do or does. Now, does snakes? No. So it is do snakes. Now why? You don't have to begin by saying do snakes. You have to say don't snakes belong in jars in a museum. Why have you taken don't? Because here the assertive is positive. So therefore your interrogative will become negative. Don't snakes belong in jars in a museum, question mark. Rewrite the following interrogative sentences as assertive sentences. The first example, was it always easy for her? Question mark. That's an interrogative sentence. You have to change it into the assertive. So the assertive is, it wasn't always easy for her. The interrogative is positive. So therefore you will write the assertive as, it wasn't always easy for her. Next, isn't there anything I can do? Question mark, interrogative sentence. The answer is, there must be something I can do for you. That's the assertive sentence. The third example, isn't there a court order against this? Question mark. This is an interrogative sentence. So you will write, there must be a court order against this. This is an assertive sentence. The fourth example, aren't you content in the jungle? Question mark, interrogative sentence. The answer is, you should be content in the jungle. This is an assertive sentence. The fifth example, why do they burst crackers at this time of the year? Question mark, interrogative sentence. The answer is, they should not burst crackers at this time of the year. That's an assertive sentence.